So the last operation we need to be able to do with surds is actually division, and we don't really divide the same. So what we actually do is if we have a fraction involving a surd on the denominator, we can actually remove the surd from the denominator by multiplying by the square root of a over the square root of a. And you'll see in a minute that what this does is we have the square root of a times the square root of a on the bottom, and then the square root signs cancel out and we're just left with a. So for the first one, what's on the bottom, the denominator? We have the square root of 3. So we're going to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. So when multiplying fractions, so if you have a fraction, a over b times c over d, when multiplying fractions, you just multiply the numerators. So it's a times c over b times d. So 7 times square root 3 will be 7 lots of square root 3. And square root 3 times by square root 3 will just give us 3. And what we've done is remove the denominator. The reason why it won't be clear now is just a skill. So again, what's on the denominator? Square root of 5. So we're going to multiply it by square root of 5 over square root of 5. And by multiplying it by square root of 5 over square root of 5, what we're effectively doing is multiplying it by 1, and we're not changing the number. So 5 times square root of 5 will be 5 lots of square root of 5. And square root of 5 times square root of 5 will be 5. So 5 over 5 will cancel, and we'll be left with just square root 5. Now, that's when if it was a single surd on the bottom like that, but we can actually get we can get fractions that look like this, where we have a surd and we have a number added to it. So if we have a fraction like this, what we're going to need to do is to remove this from the bottom, we're actually going to need to multiply it by the square root, a take the square root of b over the a take the square root of b. So that's effectively multiplying it by 1. Now, the reason we have a plus square root of b multiplied by a take the square root of b is that what happens is this is a difference of two squares. So what ends up happening is we only need to multiply the a by the a. So if we multiply this all out, what ends up happening is the two middle terms cancel because it's a difference of two squares. And I'll show you in this first example. So if we multiply this by, so we need to do the opposite sign. So this is take square root 3. So if it's take square root 3, we do the opposite and we do a plus square root 3. So it'll be 5 plus square root 3 over 5 plus square root 3. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. So, on the top we actually have 7 lots of 5, which is 35. And we have 7 lots of square root 3. And on the denominator we're going to have 5 lots of 5, which is 25. We're going to have 5 lots of square root 3, which I swear to God with this pen is doing my head in, is 5 lots of square root 3. And then, so where did I get up to? 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times square root 3 is 5 square root 3, minus square root 3 times 5 is minus 5 lots of square root 3. And then square root 3 times by square root 3, well, square root 3 times square root 3 will give us positive 3, but it's negative square root 3, so it will be negative 1 times 3, which is negative 3. And then, as I said, no, don't close, go back. So as I said, these terms cancel out. So what we're left with is, on the numerator, we're left with 35 plus 7 lots of square root 3. All over, they cancelled, 25 take 3 is 22. And we're done. So in this second example, I'm not going to write out this whole thing because we know that the middle terms are going to cancel out. So it's 6 plus square root 3, square root 2 on the bottom. So this time we need to multiply it by 6 take square root 2. So we have the difference of two squares on the bottom. So it's 6 take square root 2. And then we're going to have 3 lots of 6, which is 18. 3 lots of minus root 2, which is going to be minus 3 lots of root 2. All divided by, now it's going to be 6 times 6, which will give us 36. And now the 6 times square root 2 and the square root 2 times 6 are going to cancel out. So then we'll just have the square root 2 times by the negative square root 2. and square root 2 times square root 2 is 2, times by negative 1 is negative 2. So it's going to be 18 take 3 square root 2 over 34. As I said, the reason why we're doing this is not clear at all. Later on when we do calculus in second semester, we want to remove the surds from the denominator. It doesn't matter if they're on the top, but it does matter if they're on the bottom. So pick only 6 each for questions 1 and 2. There's way more than that, but only do 6 each for each question. Any ones that you want. Cheers.